Welcome to Under Baobab Skies. Tonight, we travel to a place where the earth itself moves with the seasons, a land that drowns and resurrects each year, just as surely as the moon waxes and wanes. It is the realm of the Lozi people, keepers of the Barrett's floodplain, that wide, breathing basin of the upper Zambezi River, where life is an act of rhythm, not control. Here, the water is king, and the people are its courtiers. When the river rises, villages float. When it withdraws, the land splits open and drinks the sun. The Lozi call their land Bulozi, and they call their way of living Kwanboka, a word that means to get out of the water. But beneath that simple meaning lies an entire philosophy: how to move with nature, not against it. This isn't just a migration, it's a ceremony, a communal dance with the river that has been performed for centuries. It's a testament to a community that understands the world doesn't bend to human will, but rather, we must learn to bend with it. To the untrained eye, the floodplain seems chaotic, a liquid maze of shifting fields and floating homes. But to the Lozi, it is a living clock. Every reed, every current, every bird call is a sign. They know when to plant, when to flee, and when to celebrate. And they have learned that one cannot own the land. One can only borrow it from the waters. This profound understanding dictates their entire existence, from the architecture of their homes to the timing of their harvest. They read the river like a sacred text, interpreting its subtle shifts and preparing for its powerful transformations. Generations have passed like waves upon this river. Elders remember seasons when the flood came too early, swallowing entire villages. They recall the quiet panic, the hurried gathering of belongings, the children carried on shoulders through rising waters. Others speak of years when the river never rose high enough, and hunger crept across the plains like smoke. In these dry years, the fertile silt that the flood usually delivers never arrives, leaving the soil cracked and barren. The cattle grow thin, and the community must ration its stores, praying for the water's return. But through all of it, the Lozi endured, not by conquering, but by listening. Their resilience is woven from deep knowledge, passed down from one generation to the next, a legacy of observation and adaptation. Let's pause for a moment. The fire crackles gently as the night breathes around us. Can you hear it? That is the sound of patience, the sound of a people in deep communion with their environment. The Lozi story is one of balance, between danger and beauty, survival and surrender. Their land teaches patience and humility. To live here is to wake each morning not knowing if the ground beneath your feet will still be there tomorrow. It is a life of profound uncertainty, yet it is met not with fear but with a quiet acceptance and readiness. This balance isn't a fragile state. It's a dynamic, ever-shifting relationship built on respect for the immense power of nature. Think about the children growing up in this world. Their playground is a shifting landscape of water and earth. They learn to paddle a canoe, a macaro, almost as soon as they learn to walk. They learn the names of the fish that swim beneath their homes and the birds that nest in the half-submerged trees. For them, the flood is not a disaster. It is a season, as natural as winter or summer. It brings with it a different way of life, new games, new chores, new horizons. Their connection to this cycle is instinctive, a core part of their identity. And so, as we begin our journey, imagine yourself standing on a raft of woven reeds, feeling the cool water lap against your toes. The horizon is wide and endless. The river hums softly, as if remembering 1,000 songs. Above you, a fish eagle circles, its cry echoing through time. This is the pulse of Bulozi. You feel the gentle sway of the water, a rhythm that has rocked generations to sleep. The air is thick with the smell of wet earth and blooming water lilies. In the distance, you hear the lowing of cattle being guided to higher ground. This is not just geography. It is memory made liquid. It is a library of stories, of hardships and triumphs, all held within the currents of the Zambezi. And tonight, we drift through it slowly, reverently, as if tracing the pulse of Africa itself. We will listen to the voices carried on the water, the tales of kings and fishermen, of spirits and ancestors. We will witness a way of life that holds a vital lesson for our own modern world, that true strength lies not in resistance, but in harmony. If you feel a connection to these stories of the wild and the human heart, please consider subscribing to our channel and turning on notifications. It helps us continue to bring these narratives to you from under the vast African sky. And the story begins now. You are now under baobab skies, and the story begins now. When the first rains fall on the upper reaches of the Zambezi, the Lozi farmers know their calendar has begun again. They stand on the banks and watch the river rise, inch by inch, swallowing the grasses, then the trees, then the very paths they walked on just days before. The flood is both guest and god. It brings fish, fertile silt, and promise, but it also carries crocodiles, mosquitoes, and disease. The Lozi have a saying, "When the Zambezi smiles, beware its teeth." This isn't just a river. It's a living, breathing entity that dictates the rhythm of life itself. For centuries, this cycle of flood and retreat has shaped a culture of resilience, respect, and profound connection to the natural world. Each family prepares their canoes, carved from the trunks of giant trees, each vessel a lifeline in the coming deluge. The men meticulously mend their fishing nets, ensuring no tear will cost them a meal. The women, with practiced efficiency, tie bundles of maize and cassava high on poles, lifting their harvest above the reach of the rising water. Children learn to sleep to the gentle, constant sound of rippling water just beneath the floors of their huts. Because once the floodplain fills, the village transforms. It becomes a floating world, a Venice of reeds and wood, where pathways are no longer dirt but shimmering water, and every journey requires a paddle. To live in the floodplain is to understand fear without succumbing to panic. The crocodiles slide silently through the newly formed channels, their eyes gleaming like twin lanterns in the murky water. The farmers step carefully, with a sixth sense honed by generations. When gathering water lilies, knowing a single misstep, a moment of inattention, can mean a swift and violent end. Yet they continue. They must, because hunger is a slower, more relentless killer than the river's jaws. It is this delicate balance, this daily negotiation with danger, that defines their existence. By the end of our journey today, you'll understand how survival here depends not on sophisticated tools, but on timing, intuition, and an ancient, unspoken pact with the water. Let's pause for a moment. Imagine the scene. The fire crackles gently, a single point of warmth and light as the vast, wet night breathes around us. The sounds of the floodplain are a symphony of life and peril. Each dawn, the men venture out in their canoes to check their traps. The air is thick, smelling of wet grass, rich earth, and the unmistakable scent of mud, heavy with life. The scales of freshly caught fish shimmer like scattered jewels in the first rays of the morning sun. Above, the calls of fish, eagles, and herons bounce and echo across the vast expanse of water. A man named Sitawala bends over his canoe, methodically scooping out water with a hollowed-out calabash. He works with a quiet focus, his movements economical and sure. As he does, he remembers his father's warning, a phrase passed down through generations. The river does not love us. It only tolerates us. It's a stark reminder of their place in this powerful ecosystem, not as masters, but as temporary, tolerated residents. And yet he smiles. A small, knowing smile breaks across his face. Because, without the river, there would be nothing. No fish to eat, no fertile soil for the next planting season, no life. The river gives as much as it threatens to take. Its tolerance is their prosperity. When the floods finally reach their peak, when the water has claimed all it can, the Lozi begin to prepare for Kwambokotha, Great Migration. This is one of Africa's most spectacular ceremonies. A vibrant procession led by the king, the Litinga, aboard his magnificent royal barge. But before the royal barge moves, ordinary farmers like Sitwala must move too. They are the vanguard of this exodus. They carefully dismantle their homes, piece by piece, woven mat by wooden pole. Precious items, seeds for the next harvest. Tools, ceremonial beads are stored in sturdy red baskets. Everything is packed, loaded onto canoes, ready to follow the ancient rhythm dictated not just by their king, but by the water itself. The women sing as they work. Their voices are low and haunting, weaving through the air like the wind rustling in the reeds. Their songs are complex tapestries of sound and meaning, part prayer for a safe journey, part warning of the dangers that lie ahead. They are oral histories, reminding the young that life here is not measured in years, but in floods survived. Each flood cycle is a chapter in their collective story, a test of their endurance and a renewal of their bond with the land and with each other. And when the night comes, a deep, star-dusted darkness that only remote places know, the families gather. They huddle around small fires built on floating platforms, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames. They stare into the dark, glassy waters that mirror the cosmos above, a perfect reflection of the heavens. In these quiet moments, the children, full of wonder, ask the timeless questions. Where does the water go when it leaves us? The elders, their faces etched with the wisdom of countless seasons, smile. It never truly leaves, they explain. It just hides in the earth, waiting until we need to remember. Remember the river's power, remember their resilience, remember who they are. This intimate relationship with the Zambezi is the heart of the Lozi identity. It's a life of constant adaptation, where every decision is weighed against the river's mood. The flood is not an inconvenience. It is the central event around which their entire world revolves. Their architecture is designed to be disassembled. Their social calendar is governed by the water level. Their spirituality is deeply intertwined with the river's life-giving and life-taking power. They don't fight the flood. They move with it, embracing its inevitability. This philosophy is what has allowed them to thrive for centuries in a landscape that would seem impossibly hostile to outsiders. They are a testament to the human ability to find harmony within even the most dynamic and challenging environments. Their survival is an art form, a dance with the elements that is both beautiful and profound. As the flood begins its slow retreat, the Lozi people of the Zambezi floodplain know their window of opportunity is fleeting. The air hangs thick with the earthy scent of wet soil, a promise of new beginnings. The mud, though heavy and clinging, is a treasure trove, rich with nutrients delivered by the river's annual deluge. This is the moment they've been waiting for. All across the plain, a timeless ritual unfolds. Women, their bodies bent low in a posture of both labor and reverence, press maize and cassava shoots into the soft, yielding earth. Their movements are practiced, efficient, a dance passed down through generations. Nearby, men stand guard, shaking rattles crafted from dried pods. The sharp, percussive sound cuts through the morning mist. a constant warning to the birds that eye the newly planted seeds with opportunistic hunger. But make no mistake, this isn't the gentle, idyllic farming you might see in a postcard. This is a battle, a relentless, daily struggle against overwhelming odds. It's a war waged on multiple fronts. For every single seed that finds its way into the mud, 1,000 enemies lie in wait. Swarms of mosquitoes rise from the stagnant pools, their high-pitched whine a prelude to the fevers they carry. Unseen beneath the surface, worms and grubs work tirelessly, devouring the tender roots before they can take hold. And as twilight descends, the real giants emerge. Hippos, seemingly placid by day, become nocturnal bulldozers, capable of crushing an entire family's field in a single night of foraging. The Lozi farm with one hand on their tools and the other held protectively over their hearts. They are intimately familiar with the scent of loss and the bitter taste of exhaustion. They have seen seasons of plenty and seasons of famine. They understand the precarious balance of their existence, how quickly the river's generosity can turn to wrath. The land gives, but it also takes. This duality is woven into the very fabric of their lives. Let's just pause here for a moment. Imagine the scene. The fire crackles, casting a warm, flickering glow against the encroaching darkness. The vast African night breathes around us, alive with the chorus of insects and the distant calls of nocturnal creatures. In this brief respite, the weight of the day's labor seems to lift, just for a little while. And yet, despite the hardships, despite the constant threat, they persist. They must. Because for the Lozi, work is more than just a means of survival. It is a form of worship. The act of planting a seed is an act of profound faith. It's a belief in the future, a trust in the cycle of life, death, and rebirth that governs their world. Every footprint left in the mud is a silent prayer, an appeal to the spirit of the river, the great Zambezi, that says, "Let the river remember us kindly this year. Let its gifts be bountiful and its temper mild." Imagine this. It's dawn on the floodplain. A soft, ethereal mist rises from the water, swirling around the ankles of the farmers as they work. In the distance, colossal thunderclouds begin to gather, their dark underbellies hinting at the power that is yet to be unleashed. The air is cool and still, broken only by the squelch of feet in mud and the soft patter of seedlings being placed in the earth. This is their world, both breathtakingly beautiful and brutally demanding. Weaving between the neat furrows, children run and laugh, their high-pitched voices echoing across the plain. Their joy is a stark, beautiful contrast to the arduous labor of their parents. They don't yet grasp the full weight of what's at stake. They don't understand that their laughter is a powerful shield, the first line of defense against the quiet despair that can so easily take root in this challenging environment. The elders watch them from the sidelines, their faces etched with the memories of countless seasons. They see themselves in these small, energetic bodies. They remember when their own hands were small and their spirits were unburdened by the knowledge of what lay ahead. In this rhythmic, cyclical dance of labor, there is a kind of peace, a temporary truce negotiated with the land. But as the sun dips below the horizon, the truce ends. Night brings a new and more insidious enemy. The mosquitoes come not in small groups, but as a thick, humming cloud, like smoke rolling across the water. The air itself seems to buzz with their collective hunger. They are relentless, seeking out any exposed patch of skin. Families huddle together, employing ancient strategies to survive the nightly siege. Some light, smoldering fires of dried cow dung, the acrid smoke a deterrent that stings the eyes but keeps the insects at bay. Others, lacking even that, simply cover themselves and their children in a protective layer of cool river mud. In the quiet darkness of their huts, they whisper stories. Tales of trickster hares and wise elephants, legends of the river's creation. These stories are more than just entertainment. They are a lifeline. They serve to keep the children awake, to distract them from the incessant biting, because in this land, falling into a deep sleep can be dangerous. The fever dreams that accompany malaria can steal more than just a night's rest. They can steal a life. Inside one such dwelling, a man named Sitwalla lies awake, listening to the sound of his wife's racking cough. It's a sound that tightens his chest with worry. He looks at his sleeping children, their faces serene in the faint moonlight filtering through the reeds. He wonders, as he often does, if the river's gifts are worth the heavy price they all must pay. Is the promise of a harvest enough to justify the constant threat of sickness and exhaustion? The question hangs in the dark, unanswered. But when the first light of dawn breaks, Sitwalla will rise. He will pick up his hoe and walk back out to the fields. He will not stop working. He cannot, because the maize must rise tall and strong before the next flood returns. And here, in the heart of the floodplain, time moves as swiftly and as unforgivingly as the Zambezi itself. Their very existence is a race against time, a testament to the enduring strength and resilience of the human spirit in the face of nature's immense power. As the late season arrives, the great floodplain of Lozi begins its transformation. The vast expanse of water, once a shimmering mirror reflecting the sky, starts to pull back. It retreats, revealing stretches of land that crack and fissure under the relentless sun, resembling the weathered hands of an elder. The Lozi people have a name for this time. They call it *Malonga Nukalile*, when the river is tired. It's a poignant description, as if the mighty Zambezi itself is sighing, weary from its long journey. The land, once saturated and teeming with aquatic life, now thirsts. The air grows thick and heavy with a dry, shimmering heat. The vibrant chorus of frogs that once filled the nights fades into a distant memory, replaced by a profound, watchful silence. In the shrinking pools left behind, fish gasp for their last breath and the scent of decay. A stark reminder of life's fragility drifts on the wind. It's a time of hardship, of scarcity, of waiting. Yet, even in this harshness, there is a distinct and resilient beauty. The fields of maize, nurtured by the floods, receding waters, now stand tall and proud, their stalks turning a brilliant gold under the African sun. They are a testament to the farmer's foresight and hard work. Across the dry, cracked earth, children, their bare feet toughened by the soil, chase after dragonflies that dart and dance in the hazy afternoon light. Their laughter rings out, a sound of pure joy that defies the austerity of the landscape. They are the future, the continuation of the cycle, their energy a vibrant contrast to the tired river. This period of transition is a study in contrasts. The decay of one form of life giving way to the flourishing of another. The quiet hardship of the land met with the irrepressible spirit of its people. It's a time that tests resolve, but also reveals the deep, enduring connection between the Lozi and their ancestral home, a connection forged in the rhythm of the flood and the drought. Let's pause for a moment. Imagine you're here with me. The day's heat is giving way to the cool of the evening. A fire crackles gently nearby, its flames casting dancing shadows. The night breathes around us, a living entity filled with the soft rustle of unseen things and the immense, star-dusted canopy of the sky. This is the time for stories, for reflection. It is in this quiet moment, between the setting sun and the rising moon, that the true work of the harvest season begins. This is when the community comes together, driven by a shared purpose. The air is filled with a sense of urgency, but it's a calm, focused urgency, born of generations of experience. They know the river is only resting. They know it will soon rise again, a powerful, cleansing force that will wash away their tracks, their sweat, and the stories written in the dust. Every footprint, every sign of their labor will vanish beneath the water, and so they harvest fast and with incredible care. Every single ear of golden maize, every starchy cassava root pulled from the earth is a victory against time. It represents sustenance, survival, and a promise kept to their families. They work with a quiet, synchronized rhythm, a dance of hands and baskets under the vast African sky. Their movements are efficient, honed by tradition. They fill their granaries, beautiful structures woven from reeds and raised on stilts, not just with grain, but with hope. They know that what they store must last. Memory, like grain, must be preserved to sustain them through the coming flood. Each filled basket is a prayer for the future, a testament to their resilience. The granaries stand as silent sentinels, safeguarding the fruits of their labor, ensuring that the community will thrive until the waters recede once more and the cycle begins anew. This season of Malonga Mukalile is more than just a period of agricultural activity. It's a profound cultural and spiritual experience. It's a time when the community's bonds are strengthened. Families work side by side, from the youngest child capable of carrying a single cob of maize to the oldest elder offering wisdom and encouragement. Songs often accompany the work, their melodies weaving through the fields, telling tales of past harvests, of legendary floods, and of the spirits that watch over the land. These songs are not just for entertainment. They are a living archive, passing down knowledge and reinforcing a sense of shared identity. The harvest is a collective effort, and the success belongs to everyone. When the granaries are full, the relief is palpable. It is a shared triumph, celebrated not with loud fanfare, but with a deep, communal sense of satisfaction and gratitude. The elders, like Sitwala, play a crucial role during this time. They are the keepers of the calendar. Their knowledge of the subtle signs of nature, the behavior of birds, the patterns of the wind, the feel of the air guiding the community's decisions. They know precisely when the soil is dry enough to support the weight of the harvest, and they can sense the distant promise of rain long before the clouds gather. They teach the younger generations not just the techniques of farming, but the philosophy behind it, to respect the river, to understand its moods, and to live in harmony with its powerful rhythm. Their wisdom ensures that the traditions are upheld, that the delicate balance between taking from the land and giving back is maintained. In this way, the harvest is not merely a physical act, but a sacred duty, a ritual that reaffirms their place within the great, cyclical story of Bula. And when the last sheaf is carefully stored away, when the final root has been unearthed and the granaries are sealed, a stillness descends upon the plain. Sitwala walks to the edge of the dry riverbed, the cracked earth cool beneath his feet in the fading light. He stands there, a solitary figure against the vast, empty expanse, and he listens. He closes his eyes, tuning out the chirping of the crickets and the whisper of the wind through the dry grasses. He listens for something deeper. And if you are quiet enough, you can almost hear it too. Somewhere far beneath the parched, broken surface of the earth, there is a faint, deep murmur. It is the sound of water, still flowing in the deep channels of the aquifer. It is the river's heartbeat, quiet but persistent. It is the whisper of continuity, a promise not broken but merely postponed. The river is not gone. It is only gathering its strength. This subterranean whisper is the source of the Lozi's unwavering faith in the cycle. It's the reassurance that the flood will return. bringing with it the silt that enriches the soil, the fish that fill the nets, and the water that quenches the thirst of the land. It's a promise of renewal, of life reborn. And so, with their larders full and their minds at ease, the farmers of Lozi rest. They gather with their families, share meals, tell stories, and mend their tools, preparing for the next phase. But this rest is not an end. It is a temporary pause, a moment of reprieve in the relentless rhythm of the seasons. It is the quiet interlude between the exhausting work of the harvest and the impending arrival of the floodwaters. Because in Lozi, as Sitwala and his people know better than anyone, rest is never a final destination. It is only the space between two floods. The land and its people hold their breath, waiting for the river to awaken once more. As the floodwaters of the Zambezi reach their zenith, a deeper, more ancient rhythm begins to stir. It's a pulse that resonates far beyond the riverbanks, echoing through the very heart of the Lozi kingdom in the royal capital itself. This is the signal. The Kwamboka season has arrived. In the palace at Lialui, a structure that seems to float upon the inundated plains, the Litinga, the revered king of the Lozi people, listens intently. He is not merely a ruler of his subjects, but a custodian of the tides and seasons, a figure intrinsically linked to the great river's ebb and flow. His connection to the water is profound, almost spiritual. He listens for the subtle shifts in its voice, the whispers that tell him the time is near. His impending journey from the flooded lowlands to the higher ground of Limulunga is far more than a simple migration. It is a profound, sacred act, a ritual that symbolizes the restoration of cosmic balance, the renewal of a covenant between the people, their king, and the powerful river that sustains them. This move reaffirms the natural order of things, demonstrating that leadership means moving in harmony with nature, not against it. Around the palace, the first stirrings of the ceremony begin. The Litingas, attendants, with practiced and reverent hands, prepare the ceremonial drums. These are not just any drums. They are the Mauma instruments with a history as deep as the floodplain itself. Royal musicians, adorned in traditional Lozi attire, can be seen near the ever-rising waters, their fingers deftly tuning their instruments, their ears listening for the perfect pitch, the one that will carry across the vast expanse of water. Every detail is meticulously attended to, as this is a performance for the spirits as much as for the people. The air thickens with a sense of purpose and anticipation. The very atmosphere seems to hum with the energy of what is to come. From every corner of the Barrett's floodplain, the people begin their pilgrimage. Villagers, their homes, soon to be claimed by the river, start to gather near the palace. They travel in hand-carved canoes, navigating the newly formed waterways that were once paths and fields. They bring with them offerings, baskets of grain, carefully crafted goods, and, most importantly, their voices, raised in songs of praise and expectation. An old Lozi saying captures the profound power of this moment. They say that when the Mauma drums finally sound their royal call, even the crocodiles, the ancient predators of the Zambezi, pause in their silent hunt to listen. Imagine that sound, a beat so powerful, so resonant, that it momentarily commands the attention of all living things. These drums are not mere percussion instruments. To the Lozi, they are sacred voices, conduits of ancestral power. Their deep, thundering rhythm is a call, a summons that brings the people and the spirits together in a shared moment of communal identity and reverence. They are the heartbeat of the Kwamboka, the signal that awakens the soul of the nation. As the drums are prepared, so too is the centerpiece of the entire ceremony. The Litinga's royal barge, the magnificent Nalikwanda. This is no ordinary vessel. It is a floating masterpiece, a cathedral of the river. Artisans work with focused intensity, their hands guided by generations of tradition. They are repainting its iconic black and white stripes along its great hull. These stripes are not just decoration, they are a powerful symbol, representing the fundamental dualities of existence, day and night, light and shadow, life and death. The Nalekwanda is a microcosm of the universe, a vessel that will carry the king and his people through the transformative waters, bridging the gap between the physical and spiritual worlds. Its preparation is a ritual in itself, each brushstroke a prayer for a safe and prosperous journey. The sheer scale of it is breathtaking, a testament to the community's collective effort and devotion. Let's just pause here for a moment. Imagine the scene. The sun is setting over the vast sheet of water, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. The gentle lapping of the water against the stilts of the village huts provides a constant, soothing rhythm. A fire crackles nearby, its warm glow pushing back the encroaching darkness. The air is cool and clean, filled with the scent of wet earth and wood smoke. The night breathes around us, a living entity, and in this quiet moment, the weight of the coming days settles in. It is a time of reflection, of connection to the past, and of hope for the future. The entire landscape seems to be holding its breath, waiting. And this feeling of anticipation is not just confined to the royal capital. It spreads like a ripple across the entire floodplain. In every village, in every household, the excitement builds. Children, their eyes wide with wonder, gather in clusters to rehearse the songs of praise they will sing for their king. Their high, clear voices carry across the water, a beautiful counterpoint to the low hum of the evening. The women of the community are busy, their skilled hands polishing intricate beads. These beads, each one carefully chosen and strung, will catch the brilliant African sun during the ceremony, scattering light like 1,000 tiny rainbows. They are not just ornaments, but symbols of wealth, status, and artistic heritage. Meanwhile, the old men, the keepers of history and wisdom, gather the younger generations around them. By the flickering light of lanterns, they tell the stories of the first Kwamboka. They speak of a time long ago when the ancestors faced a great flood, a deluge that threatened to consume everything. Guided by their leader, the first Litinga, they followed the sound of a single, powerful drumbeat through flood and fire, through chaos and uncertainty, until they found safe, high ground. These stories are more than just folklore. They are the threads that weave the past into the present. They remind everyone that the Kwamboka is not just a spectacle, but a reenactment of their very origin story. A celebration of their resilience and their enduring bond with their leaders and their land. The ritual is about so much more than mere survival. It is a living, breathing history lesson. It is a powerful act of remembering, a collective acknowledgement of a fundamental truth that governs life on the floodplain. No king, no matter how powerful, rules without the river's consent. The Litinga's move is an act of respect, a bow to the superior force of nature. It reinforces the idea that true leadership lies in wisdom, in understanding the rhythms of the world, and in guiding one's people with humility and foresight. The river gives, and the river takes away. The Kwamboka is the graceful, beautiful, and profound dance that the Lozi people perform in harmony with this eternal truth. It is a testament to their ability to adapt, to thrive, and to find celebration in the very forces that define their existence. And as the final preparations are made, the entire nation waits for the sound that will set it all in motion, the mighty, soul-stirring call of the Moama drums. The day finally arrives. As the sun rises, casting a golden glow across the floodplain, The Nalikwanda gleams in the morning light. It's an awe-inspiring sight, a massive black and white barge, meticulously painted and maintained. The prow is carved with the majestic head of an elephant, its trunk raised in a symbol of power and wisdom. This is the Litanga's royal emblem, a sign of his authority and connection to the land. The air is thick with anticipation, a palpable energy that you can almost taste. Then the sound begins. Drummers, positioned with a reverence that speaks of ancient tradition, strike the Myoma, the great royal war drums. The rhythm is deep, resonant, and powerful. It's a sound that doesn't just enter your ears. It vibrates through your bones, making the very earth seem to tremble in response. It's the heartbeat of the Lozi people, a call to gather, a signal that the Great Migration is about to begin. A roar erupts from the crowd, a wave of cheers and shouts that rolls across the water. All eyes are fixed on the Litanga. He emerges, and the people's excitement reaches a crescendo. He steps aboard the Nalikwanda with a grace and dignity befitting his station. He is dressed in a striking black and white robe, a ceremonial admiral's uniform that reflects a historical link to British royalty, a gift from King Edward VII. Upon his head sits a crown not of gold or jewels, but of lion mane, a symbol of his courage, strength, and his place as the ultimate protector of his people. He is the Lion King, the Mbumuwa Litinga, and his presence commands absolute respect. As he takes his place, the paddlers, 100 strong, adorned in animal skins and headdresses of scarlet feathers, stand ready, their paddles held aloft in unison. With a final, thunderous beat of the Mauma, the journey begins. The Nalikwanda glides, slowly, majestically, through the floodwaters. There's no rush, no frantic pace. This is a procession, a stately and sacred movement. The barge doesn't travel alone. It's flanked by a flotilla of smaller canoes, an entire moving court on the water. These canoes carry nobles in their finest attire, royal guards standing watchful and alert, and priests chanting quiet blessings for a safe passage. The entire floodplain transforms into a moving city of vibrant color, hypnotic music, and synchronized motion. From a distance, it looks like a painting come to life, a breathtaking spectacle of culture in motion. The synchronized dip and pull of the paddles creates a mesmerizing rhythm, a visual beat that matches the sound of the drums. As the royal barge progresses, the sounds of the celebration evolve. The air fills with the sharp, trilling cries of women ululating from the banks and from smaller canoes. This is a sound of joy, of reverence, of deep cultural expression. Their high-pitched ululations weave through the deep bass of the drums, creating a complex and beautiful tapestry of sound that is uniquely African. Amidst this symphony, the Litinga, the king, stands tall. He doesn't speak, but his gestures carry immense weight. He raises his hand, not in a simple wave, but in a slow, solemn blessing to his people. It's a gesture of assurance, a promise that he is with them, guiding them to safety. The crowd responds with renewed cheers, their faith in their leader reaffirmed. It's a powerful exchange, a silent conversation between a king and his subjects, built on centuries of trust. Following closely behind the Nalikwanda is another magnificent vessel. It's the Queen's barge, known as the Notila. While smaller than the King's, it is no less magnificent, adorned with its own intricate carvings and decorations. On board is the Litinga's wife, the Moyo, accompanied by her own retinue. This barge carries something of immense spiritual importance, the sacred royal relics. These are not just objects. They are the spiritual heart of the Lozi nation, items passed down through generations of rulers. They are carefully wrapped in leopard skins, a material reserved for royalty and spiritual power, signifying their sacredness. The presence of these relics sanctifies the journey, turning a physical migration into a deeply spiritual pilgrimage. The Queen's barge follows in the King's wake, a symbol of the complementary forces that ensure the continuation of the Lozi people. Let's pause here for just a moment. As we imagine this scene, let the noise of the modern world fade away. Picture yourself there, perhaps sitting by a fire at night, long after the day's journey is done. The fire crackles gently, its embers glowing in the dark, and the night air of the Zambezi floodplain breathes quietly around us. The story of the Kwamboka isn't just a tale of a festival. It's more than that. It's a moving sermon, a living, breathing metaphor for resilience. It's a testament to the human spirit's ability to adapt, to endure, and to find hope in the face of cyclical change. The Lozi people don't fight the flood, they move with it. They respect its power and have turned its arrival not into a disaster, but into a reason for a grand and joyous celebration. Every single element of the Kwamboka is imbued with deep meaning. Each stroke of the paddles pushing the Nalikwanda through the water isn't just a physical act of propulsion. It's a promise. It's a rhythmic declaration that life will rise again, that after the flood recedes, the land will be fertile and new growth will emerge. The paddlers are not just laborers, they are participants in a sacred ritual, their synchronized effort a symbol of the community's unity and shared purpose. For the Lozi, the King's movement is a mirror of the water's journey. His departure from the flooded lowlands is the catalyst for the entire community's migration. When he departs, the people follow, trusting his wisdom and leadership. And when he arrives safely at the Winter Palace on high ground, it signals that the land is ready to awaken, that a new season of life and prosperity can begin. Look to the banks of the vast, watery plain. They are lined with people, a sea of faces reflecting joy, hope, and deep respect. Children, their eyes wide with wonder, wave excitedly as the great barge passes. They shout with pure, uninhibited joy, their voices carrying across the water. Nalikwanda, move with power. Nalikwanda, their cries are a prayer, an encouragement, a pure expression of their connection to this tradition. Further along, the elders stand. They don't shout or wave wildly. Instead, they bow their heads in a gesture of profound respect as the king passes. You can see their lips moving, whispering old blessings, prayers spoken in dialects that have been passed down through countless generations. These are languages that have seen floods and famines, peace and conflict, and have evolved to a point where they, as the saying goes, no longer have words for war only, for unity, resilience, and peace. The ceremony is not a brief affair. It lasts all day, a slow and deliberate procession from sunrise to sunset. The sun charts its course across the sky, mirroring the barge's journey across the water. The music never stops, the paddling never ceases, and the energy of the people never wanes. It is a marathon of celebration, a full day dedicated to this vital transition. Finally, as the afternoon sun begins to dip towards the horizon, casting long shadows on the water, the destination comes into view. The Nalikwanda reaches the high ground at Limyalanga, the Litinga's winter capital. The journey is complete. The great barge docks, and a hush falls over the crowd, a moment of sacred silence. Then, the Litinga steps off the Nalikwanda and onto dry land. This single step is the climax of the entire ceremony. It signifies safety, renewal, and the official start of a new season. At that moment, the people know the year has begun anew. The flood has been overcome, not by fighting it, but by gracefully moving with it, led by their king. The cycle is complete, and life can flourish once more. As the grand royal procession draws to a close, a new energy sweeps across the floodplain. The solemnity of the journey gives way to joyous celebration. Along the shoreline, countless fires spring to life, their flames dancing in the twilight, casting a warm, golden glow on the faces of the Lozi people. The air, thick with the scent of wood smoke, is now mingled with the irresistible aroma of roasting fish and maize, a feast prepared for a king and his loyal subjects. The crackle of the fires provides a gentle rhythm, soon joined by a deeper, more resonant sound. Drums begin to beat, their powerful cadence echoing across the vast expanse, a sound so primal it feels like the very heartbeat of the land itself. The people, their spirits lifted, begin to sing. Their voices rise in unison, a chorus that carries their history and their hopes. The river has carried our king, they sing, their melody weaving through the night. And now the land will feed our children. It's a song of gratitude, a testament to the cyclical nature of their lives, where the river's journey ensures the land's bounty. Let's just pause here for a moment. Close your eyes and imagine it. The gentle crackle of the fire beside you, the night air cool on your skin, the distant water reflecting the flickering torchlight like scattered jewels. All around, villagers adorned in vibrant, colorful cloth are celebrating. Dancers move with a fluid grace before the magnificent silhouette of the Littingus temporary reed palace. It's a scene of pure, unadulterated community and joy, a moment suspended in time, steeped in tradition. The night breathes around us, calm and alive. Then a hush falls over the crowd. The drums soften, the singing subsides. All eyes turn to one man. The Littinger, their king, rises to speak. His presence commands an effortless respect. When he addresses his people, his voice is not loud or forceful, but deep and steady, like the powerful current of the Zambezi itself. It's a voice that carries the weight of generations, the wisdom of a lineage deeply connected to this land and this water. He doesn't speak of power or conquest. Instead, he speaks of something far more fundamental: balance. He reminds them that their survival, their prosperity, depends on maintaining this delicate equilibrium, a balance between taking what is needed and giving thanks for what is received, a balance between greed and gratitude. He speaks of the profound connection between humanity and nature, not as separate entities, but as two parts of a single, living whole. His words are a gentle warning, a piece of timeless wisdom. Do not build your ambitions too high, he cautions, his voice resonating with a quiet authority. For even the strongest wall can drown when the river reclaims its own. It's a powerful metaphor, a reminder that humility before the forces of nature is not a weakness, but the ultimate strength. It's about understanding their place within the grander scheme of the floodplain, not attempting to dominate it. As he finishes speaking, the first stars begin to pierce the deep velvet of the night sky. The drums, which had been a soft pulse, now fall silent. A profound peace settles over the gathering. The feast continues, but with a more reflective air. Families gather closer, sharing stories under the vast, open sky. Their bellies are full from the land's bounty, but more importantly, their hearts are full of a sense of belonging, of security, of a shared purpose. For now, the river sleeps. Its journey is complete, its power held in quiet reserve. The floodplain, their temporary home, glows under the soft, ethereal light of the moon. It is vast, it is quiet, and it is teeming with life. The Kwamboka is more than just a move. It is a reaffirmation of a sacred pact between a people, their king, and the river that defines their world. And so, this chapter of our journey comes to an end. We have witnessed the spectacle, felt the rhythm, and heard the wisdom of the Kwamboka ceremony. But the story of the Lozi people, much like the mighty Zambezi itself, doesn't simply stop here. It continues to flow onward, carving new paths through the landscape of time. It carries with it the secrets of ancient canals that once irrigated these plains, the whispers of lost villages submerged by the annual floods, and the royal destinies of kings and queens that are still unfolding, generation after generation. What we've seen is just one turn in this magnificent, ever-flowing river of history. There is so much more to discover, more traditions to understand, and more stories to tell. The resilience and adaptability of the Lozi are woven into the very fabric of their culture, a culture shaped by the ebb and flow of one of Africa's greatest rivers. Their story is a powerful testament to living in harmony with the natural world, a lesson that feels more relevant today than ever before. The Lozi did not merely farm the floodplain, they conversed with it. They developed a language, not of words, but of rhythm, of water, of earth. Imagine this. Each year, as the great Zambezi River began to swell with distant rains from Angola, the villagers would gather by the reeds. They weren't there to measure or to fear. They were there to listen to the earth itself. That sound of rushing water, which to an outsider might sound like a threat, was not a warning to them. It was a song. It was a message that the season was turning, that their entire world was about to rise and sink again, like a great, breathing creature beneath their very feet. This wasn't just a place to live. It was a living partner. The early farmers of what we now call Baratsland learned to time their lives with this pulse. It was the metronome for their existence. Their homes weren't built of stone or stubborn wood, things designed to resist nature. No, they were built of reeds, the very same reeds that sang in the wind and bent gracefully to the river's current. In a landscape like this, permanence was a form of arrogance. It was a fool's game. So, instead of trying to conquer the environment, the Lozi mastered flexibility. They moved with the waters. They built temporary canals and raised garden beds that could either float or drain, depending entirely on the river's mood. They didn't fight the tide, they danced with it. Let's pause for a moment. Imagine the fire crackling gently as the night breathes around us. The stories of the elders filling the quiet air. Their grandfathers passed down stories, not just of history, but of wisdom. They told them that the Zambezi was once a restless god, a powerful entity who loved nothing but balance. When people grew greedy, building their villages and their ambitions too close to its heart, it would rise up and swallow them whole. But when people withdrew in fear, keeping too far away, it would retreat and leave them to thirst, the land cracking under the sun. So, the Lozi created something remarkable. The Lui, these were channels carved by hand, meticulously dug through the rich, black mud. They were designed to guide the water without chaining it. This was the art of collaboration, not conquest. A partnership etched into the soil itself. By the end of the long, dry months, these canals would shimmer under the African sun like silver veins crisscrossing the land. And with the water came life. Fish followed these new pathways, providing a vital source of protein. Slender canoes, carved from local trees, would slide silently through them, connecting communities and carrying goods. And when the floods finally came, these same canals would feed the farmlands with a new rush of life-giving water and nutrient-rich silt. This allowed them to grow millet, maize, cassava, and the precious sweet sorghum that glistened like jewels in the morning sun. It was a system of perfect, cyclical harmony. Let's pause again. Picture an elder, his face a map of seasons past. As he adjusts the firewood, the smoke curls upwards into the night sky, like the very breath of an ancestor watching over them. But this harmony was incredibly fragile. It was a delicate balance that demanded constant attention. Every single canal required immense labor. We're talking about whole families, working with nothing more than their bare hands and woven baskets, digging through thick mud for days on end. And every canal was a gamble. One wrong bend, one accidentally blocked outlet, and an entire season's crop of the food that would sustain them for a year could drown under the floodwaters. Through this process, the Lozi learned profound lessons in patience, humility, and above all, listening. They became engineers of silence, guided not by rulers or written plans, but by the quiet, ancient rhythm of the river. This wasn't just agriculture, it was a spiritual practice. The floodplain was their temple, and the flow of water was their scripture. They understood that you could not command the river, you could only ask. You could not own the land, you could only borrow it. This deep ecological wisdom was woven into every aspect of their culture, from their stories and songs to the very construction of their homes. Their survival depended on respecting the power that surrounded them, and in doing so, they thrived for generations in a place where others would have surely failed. It was a testament to the idea that true strength lies not in resistance, but in adaptation. Think about the contrast with so many other civilizations that sought to tame nature, to build dams, to divert rivers, to impose their will upon the landscape. The Lozi chose a different path. Their engineering was soft, pliable, and temporary. It acknowledged that nature was the senior partner in this relationship. They built their world around the river's schedule, not the other way around. When the floods receded, they would plant in the newly fertilized soil. When the floods returned, they would retreat to higher ground, their famous Kwamboka ceremony marking this annual migration. It was a spectacle of thousands of people moving in a flotilla of canoes, led by their king in a grand barge, a celebration of their resilience and their unique bond with the water. This wasn't a primitive way of life. It was an incredibly sophisticated one. It required an intimate knowledge of hydrology, soil science, and biology that was passed down through observation and oral tradition. They knew which plants could withstand temporary flooding, where the fish would spawn, and how to read the subtle changes in the water's color and speed. This was a science born of necessity and honed by centuries of careful observation. They were true masters of their environment, not because they controlled it, but because they understood it so completely. Let's take one final pause. The fire has burned down to glowing embers, casting a warm, soft light. The story is almost at its end, but the lessons linger in the warm night air. The story of the Lozi and their canals is more than just a piece of history. It's a lesson for our time. In a world facing climate change and ecological crisis, their philosophy of collaboration with nature feels more relevant than ever. They show us that it's possible to live in abundance without destroying the systems that sustain us. They teach us the value of humility, the power of listening, and the wisdom of bending like a reed in the wind instead of breaking like a stone. Their legacy isn't written in monuments of rock, but in the shimmering, life-giving veins of water they coaxed from the earth. A testament to a people who truly knew how to live as part of the world, not just on it. As generations came and went, the canals stretched further and further across the plain, multiplying not as grand monuments to wealth, but as living proof of collective endurance. They were the lifelines of the Lozi, etched into the earth by hand. Each village took responsibility for its own stretch of waterway. During the waning moon, a special time for this communal work, the air would fill with the sound of work songs. The voices of hundreds of people, men and women, would rise together, a chorus carrying across the vast landscape like a great flock of birds taking flight. There was a profound beauty in this labor. You could see it in the shared rhythm of their movements. Scoop, lift, pour, rest. Scoop, lift, pour, rest. It was a dance of survival. Children, not to be left out, would carry bundles of reeds. The women, with incredible skill, packed the mud to form strong, watertight banks. And the men, they shaped the channels into smooth, flowing arcs, guiding the precious water as if it were the very breath of the land itself. These canals weren't mapped on paper or in ink. They were mapped in memory. Any elder could sit down, trace the entire network in the sand with a single finger, and name the families who kept each section alive, generation after generation. It was a living, breathing map, held in the hearts and minds of the people. Let's just pause here for a moment. Can you hear it? The fire hums low, and outside, beyond the great roots of the baobab tree, the night is alive with the sound of frogs. But this life was not without its heartbreaks. There were years when even the strongest arms and the most determined spirits failed. Some seasons, the great Zambezi River would arrive too early or swell with too much strength. It would become a devouring force, swallowing the carefully built embankments and consuming entire fields in a matter of hours. In those devastating times, the farmers could only stand helpless on higher ground, watching as months of their hard work vanished beneath the churning brown waves. They would look at the destruction and say, "The river is angry." Then they would retreat, whispering prayers to Niam, the sky god, the great creator who gave them both the life-giving flood and the devastating famine. And yet, even in the face of such loss, they never abandoned the plain. That is the most remarkable part of their story. When the floodwaters finally withdrew, leaving behind a new layer of fertile silt, the Lozi returned. They came back, undeterred. They rebuilt their homes, they redug the canals, they relearned the lessons the river had taught them. Because to live in Barotsland, to be a part of this unique world, was to understand a fundamental truth. True mastery isn't about power or control. It's about endurance. It's about the will to begin again. Every generation carefully passed on these lessons through stories. Fathers would tell their sons about the canals that, in a dry year, saved entire harvests from ruin. Grandmothers would recite the tales of floods that came like silent ghosts in the night, reminding them to always be prepared. And in the long, quiet evenings, gathered around the warmth of a fire, the elders would share the most important lesson of all. They would look at the younger faces and say, "You do not own this land. The water does. You are only its guest." This deep, profound humility became more than just a saying. It became a moral code. It was a principle that shaped everything in Lozi society, their politics, their religion, and even their art. The steady, patient rhythm of canal life became the rhythm of governance itself. In Barotsland, both kings and common farmers were bound by the very same truth. You can't control everything, but with wisdom and respect, you can guide it. Let's pause again. See how the embers in the fire are dimming now, and the storyteller's voice lowers, drawing you closer into the heart of the tale. This understanding, this humility, was the key. It wasn't about conquering nature. It was about harmonizing with it. The Lozi knew that the river was a powerful, unpredictable force. They didn't see it as an enemy to be defeated, but as a partner to be respected. This philosophy influenced their entire political structure. A king, or Litinga, wasn't seen as an absolute ruler who could command the land to bend to his will. Instead, he was the chief guardian, the one responsible for guiding the community in its relationship with the river. His authority was earned not through force, but through wisdom. The wisdom to know when to plant, when to move the cattle to higher ground, and when to organize the people to repair the canals. The annual cycle of flood and retreat dictated the rhythm of government. When the plains were dry, the king resided in his capital on the lowlands. But as the floodwaters began to rise, the entire court, and indeed many of the people, would migrate in a spectacular ceremony called the Kwamboka. This ceremonial move to the winter capital on higher ground was a public acknowledgement that the water was the true ruler of the plain. It was a powerful, visual representation of their core belief: guide everything, control nothing. This philosophy also permeated their spiritual beliefs. Niam, the sky god, was a distant creator, but the spirits of the river, the land, and their ancestors were immediate and ever-present. Offerings were made not just to ask for favor, but to show respect and maintain balance. They understood that their survival depended on a delicate negotiation with the forces of nature, not a domination of them. This wasn't a religion of fear, but one of deep ecological awareness. It was a spirituality woven directly from the threads of their daily existence. The feel of mud between their fingers, the song of the water in the canals, the sight of the rising sun over a flooded plain. Even their art reflected this worldview. The intricate patterns carved into their wooden tools, their boats, and their ceremonial drums often mimicked the flowing lines of water or the shapes of the fish and birds that lived in the floodplain. Their art wasn't just decorative. It was a way of embedding the story of their relationship with the river into the objects of their everyday lives. Each pattern was a reminder of their place in the world, a celebration of the delicate balance they worked so hard to maintain. A carved paddle wasn't just a tool for moving a canoe. It was a piece of the river itself, shaped by human hands to navigate its currents. In every aspect of their lives, the Lozi demonstrated that their greatest strength was not in fighting the river, but in learning to dance with it. They were guests in a world owned by water, and they were the most gracious and resilient guests imaginable. But time, as it always does, has a way of silencing even the most stubborn waters. The arrival of colonial cartographers marked a profound shift. They came with their steel theodolites, their tripods, and their perfectly gridded maps that ignored the ancient songs of the floodplain. The intricate dance of water and people that had defined this land for generations. Their instruments were tools of precision, but they were blind to the pulse of the ecosystem. They looked upon the vast, seasonally flooded plains and declared them unproductive, wasteland, or swamp. They couldn't comprehend a system where productivity wasn't measured in static fields and fenced-off properties, but in the dynamic, life-giving flow of water. Their new boundaries, drawn with straight lines that cut across the natural contours of the land, disrupted the delicate balance. Taxes were imposed, forcing a shift in labor and priorities. The logic of the floodplain, which was one of communal effort and seasonal adaptation, clashed with the rigid, extractive logic of the colonial administration. Suddenly, the ancient water roads, the canals that had been the arteries of Lozi society, began to fade from prominence, like ink bleeding on a wet page. The knowledge they held was deemed irrelevant in this new world of straight lines and cash crops. With this shift, the cultural fabric began to unravel. The young, drawn towards new forms of education and labor, stopped learning the canal songs. The poetic mnemonics that held the wisdom of water management, the rhythms that guided the shovels, fell silent. The shovels themselves, once symbols of communal power and creation, were left to rust in the corners of huts. In the abandoned canals, the reeds grew thick and tangled, choking the channels where water once danced freely under the sun. The passage of time was relentless. Soon, only the elders, their faces etched with the lines of memory, could recall the feeling of guiding a stream with their bare hands. the intimate connection of soothing a restless current as one might soothe a restless child. They remembered the collective joy of seeing a newly dug canal fill with life-giving water, a shared triumph written upon the earth. Let's pause here for a moment. Imagine standing on the plain as a cool wind drifts through the scattered trees, carrying the earthy, rich scent of river silt. It's a scent that speaks of fertility, of life and decay, the very essence of the floodplain's cycle. In this quiet moment, you can almost hear the echoes of the past, the faint whispers of a different way of life carried on the breeze. It airs a moment to reflect on what is lost when one form of knowledge is forcibly replaced by another, when the songs of the land are silenced by the scratching of a pen on a map. Yet, even in silence, the land does not forget. Beneath the surface, the canals still whisper their stories. During the harsh, dry years, when the floodplain's waters recede to their lowest point, a remarkable phenomenon occurs. Satellite images, those modern, all-seeing eyes in the sky, reveal a hidden truth. Faint scars appear in the cracked mud, a ghostly network of winding, deliberate, ancient lines. They are the spectral signatures of the forgotten canals, a vast and intricate system etched into the very memory of the earth. This is undeniable proof. It is evidence that the Lozi people, with simple tools and profound understanding, built a hydraulic system as complex and sophisticated as any of the great aqueducts of the Roman Empire or the sprawling irrigation networks of ancient Mesopotamia. But there was a fundamental difference. The Lozi system wasn't powered by the might of conquest or the labor of the enslaved. It was powered by cooperation. It was a civilization built not on stone and steel, but on mud, memory, and motion. Each channel was a testament to a community working in harmony with nature, not against it. It was a shared investment in a collective future, a masterpiece of ecological engineering, born from necessity and sustained by culture. And so, the storytellers of the Lozi, the keepers of the flame of memory, have a saying. They will tell you when you stand on the Barrett's floodplain and feel the earth breathing beneath your feet. Remember this: you are not standing on empty ground. You are standing on the veins of the past. You are standing atop a network of history, a circulatory system that once carried the lifeblood of a kingdom and whose faint pulse can still be felt by those who know how to listen. It's a powerful reminder that what is invisible is not necessarily absent, and that the deepest truths are often written not in books, but upon the land itself. Let's pause one last time before we leave this chapter of the story. Imagine the scene. The fire crackles softly now, its embers glowing like dormant stars. The deep, velvet night of the African plains folds around us like a familiar reed mat, warm and comforting. The air is still, and the only sounds are the fire and the distant calls of nocturnal creatures. In this final moment of quiet reflection, we can truly appreciate the resilience of memory and the enduring legacy of the Lozi people. A legacy that persists in the very soil, waiting for the right conditions to reveal itself once more. To speak of Lialui is to speak of a kingdom built on movement, a civilization that ebbs and flows with the great Zambezi River. Imagine a capital city that doesn't defy nature but dances with it. This isn't a story of stone fortresses and permanent walls. It's a story of resilience, adaptation, and a profound connection to the water that gives life and, at times, reclaims the land. Here, in the heart of Baratsland, the very concept of a capital is fluid, and the palace itself is a nomad, when the great floodplains of the Zambezi begin to swell, signaling the end of the dry season and the return of the life-giving waters. An extraordinary event takes place. The entire capital, led by the king, prepares for a royal migration known as the Kwanboka. The word itself, in the Lozi language, means to get out of the water, and it is one of the most spectacular ceremonies in all of Africa. The palace at Lialui, the flood season capital, is abandoned for the higher grounds of Limulunga, the dry season capital. Picture this: the air is thick with anticipation. The rhythm of royal drums, the Mayoma, echoes across the vast expanse of water, a heartbeat for a nation on the move. And then it appears. The Nalikwanda, the Litingas royal barge. It is a magnificent vessel, a floating palace adorned with striking black and white stripes, symbolizing the land and the water, stability and constant flow. At its helm, a giant model of an elephant, the emblem of the Litinga, seems to survey the waters ahead. Propelling this grand barge are over 100 paddlers, all dressed in traditional scarlet attire, their movements synchronized, a powerful display of unity and strength. They don't just row, they perform, their chants and songs rising above the splash of the oars, a testament to a tradition that has endured for centuries. The Litinga, the king, sits within, a silent, revered figure who is more than a man. He is the custodian of his people and the living embodiment of their covenant with the river. This journey is not merely a practical relocation. It is a deeply spiritual and cultural pilgrimage. Each stroke of the paddle, each beat of the drum, reaffirms the identity of the Lozi people. They are the people of the river, a community whose calendar is marked not by months and dates, but by the rising and falling of the flood. The Kwamboka is their new year, their national day, and their most sacred rite, all rolled into one glorious, waterborne procession. The flotilla is a sight to behold, a vibrant community on the water, with smaller canoes and barges for the Queen and other royal family members following in the wake of the great Nalikwanda. It's a kingdom in transit, a spectacle of color, sound, and motion that draws crowds from all over the world, all gathered to witness this majestic dance between humanity and nature. Now, let's pause for a moment. Let the echoes of the drums fade, replaced by the gentle hum of night insects in the floodplain. Let the energy of the ceremony settle, and let's turn our attention to the place they leave behind. The palace at Leo. When the waters recede, the king and his people will return. But what kind of palace can withstand such a cycle? It's not built of stone or mortar, materials that would resist and eventually be broken by the water's power. Instead, the palace at Lialui is made entirely of reeds and thatch, materials that bend, breathe, and coexist with the environment. It stands not as a fortress designed to keep nature out, but as a living reminder of the river's rhythm. Its woven walls breathe with the wind, allowing air to circulate in the humid climate. Its floors, laid upon the earth, shift and settle with the moisture in the ground. This isn't a flaw in its design. It is the very essence of it. The structure is a masterclass in sustainable architecture, a testament to indigenous knowledge that understands that true strength lies not in resistance, but in harmony. Even the throne itself is woven from reeds, not carved from unyielding wood or stone. This is a powerful statement. It serves as a constant, tangible reminder to every ruler that no king may forget he rules by the permission of the waters. His power is not absolute. It is granted by the natural world his people inhabit. The palace complex is a labyrinth of courtyards and red-fenced enclosures, each with its own purpose, from royal quarters to meeting places for the elders. It is a space that feels organic, as if it grew from the soil itself. When you walk through its passages, you are walking through a structure that is alive, one that will be submerged and reborn with each passing year. It's a powerful metaphor for the Lozi people themselves, resilient, adaptable, and forever tied to the cyclical nature of their world. The very architecture whispers a fundamental truth. To survive and thrive here, you must learn to yield, to move, and to respect the immense power of the Zambezi. Inside the quiet courtyards and reed-walled chambers of Lialui, a profound silence reigns. The boisterous energy of the Kwamboka gives way to a deep, abiding sense of reverence and tradition. Here, protocol is paramount. Every visitor, regardless of their status from a decorated warrior to a respected priest, must adhere to the ancient customs. Upon entering the royal presence, one must remove their sandals. The ground here is sacred. Then they must bow low, a gesture of deep respect not just for the man, but for the institution he represents. The Litinga is both man and symbol. He is the political and spiritual leader of his people. But he is also something more, a bridge between the human world and the hydrological world. He is the intermediary, the figure who mediates the relationship between his community and the great river that dictates their existence. His authority is intertwined with the natural cycles of flood and drought. He doesn't just rule over the land, he personifies its spirit. This dual role imbues his position with an almost mystical quality. He is the anchor of his society, the focal point around which the Lozi universe revolves. To approach him is to approach the very heart of the kingdom's identity. This deep respect is reflected in every interaction within the palace walls. Conversations are held in hushed tones. Movements are deliberate and graceful. There is an unspoken understanding that this space is the nucleus of their culture, a sanctuary where the past is honored and the future is navigated with wisdom. The king himself, though revered, is not an unapproachable deity. He is the father of his nation, and his role is one of stewardship. The humility demanded of his visitors is a reflection of the humility the entire kingdom must show to the forces of nature that shape their lives. It is a culture built on respect for elders, respect for tradition, and above all, respect for the river. But the Litinga does not rule alone. The weight of navigating this complex world, a world governed by water, is shared. The king's advisors are the keepers of balance. They are not simply politicians or courtiers in the way one might imagine in a European court. Their roles are far more holistic, blending science, spirituality, and ancestral wisdom. Among them are the readers of floods, men and women who have spent their lives studying the river. They can interpret the subtle changes in its flow, the color of its water, the behavior of its currents, and predict the timing and intensity of the annual inundation. Their knowledge is not written in books, but is passed down through generations, a living library of ecological understanding. Then there are the interpreters of bird flight. Certain birds are seen as messengers, their migratory patterns or sudden appearance signaling changes in the weather or a message from the ancestral spirits. The way a flock of egrets moves across the sky or the call of a specific water bird can hold deep meaning for those who know how to listen. This is not superstition. It is a form of natural semiotics, reading the language of the ecosystem. Similarly, there are the listeners of frog song. The chorus of frogs is a vital indicator of the health of the floodplain. Different species sing at different times, and the volume and timing of their calls can tell an experienced listener everything from the imminent arrival of rain to the quality of the water. These advisors form a council of ecological sages. When decisions of great importance must be made, decisions about agriculture, migration, or even war and peace, the process does not begin with the sharpening of swords or the counting of soldiers. It begins with listening. It begins with the sound of rain on the thatch roof, with the careful observation of the river, with a deep and abiding attention to the symphony of the natural world. The Lozi leadership understands a fundamental truth that many other civilizations have forgotten. Human affairs are not separate from the environment, but are deeply, inextricably linked to it. True power and wisdom come not from dominating nature, but from understanding its language and respecting its rhythms. The legacy of Lialui and the Kwamboka is more than just a fascinating cultural tradition. It's a powerful lesson for the modern world. In an era where we often see nature as something to be conquered, controlled, and exploited, the Lozi people offer a different vision, one of coexistence and respect. Their kingdom doesn't just survive the floods, it thrives because of them. The annual inundation that forces them to move also replenishes the soil, creating fertile grazing lands and rich fishing grounds. Their entire way of life is a masterclass in sustainability and resilience. Think about it, their capital is mobile, their architecture is biodegradable, and their political decisions are guided by ecological indicators. This is a society that has perfected the art of living in harmony with a dynamic and powerful environment. The image of the Nalikwanda gliding gracefully across the floodwaters is not just a symbol of royal power. It is a symbol of humanity moving in concert with the planet. It reminds us that our foundations need not be rigid and unyielding. Sometimes the greatest strength lies in our ability to be fluid, to adapt, and to move with the currents of change rather than fighting against them. Lialui is not just a place on a map. It is a philosophy, a living testament to the idea that our survival and prosperity are ultimately tied to the health and respect we show to the natural world. It teaches us that a throne woven from reeds can be more powerful than one carved from stone, because it understands that true sovereignty comes from partnership, not dominion. Hello again, and welcome back. If you're just joining us, we've journeyed deep into the heart of the Barrett's floodplain, arriving at the magnificent reed palace of Lialui. As the sun casts long shadows over this floating capital, let's step inside its walls, where the currents of power and diplomacy flow just as surely as the Zambezi's waters outside. Imagine this scene. Within Lialui's intricate reed walls, politics moved like the very canals that crisscrossed the floodplain, delicate, constantly shifting, and absolutely vital to survival. This wasn't a world of grand pronouncements and harsh edicts. It was a world of subtlety, of whispers carried on the breeze, of power demonstrated not through force, but through influence. Envoys from distant regions wouldn't arrive on horseback with armies at their back. No, they would arrive by canoe, their paddles slicing silently through the water. They brought with them tribute, not as a tax, but as a sign of respect and continued alliance. These weren't just token gifts. Each item told a story. There were beautifully woven mats, their patterns speaking of the traditions of a particular village. There were heavy baskets overflowing with grain, a promise of the land's bounty and a contribution to the kingdom's stores. Sometimes there would be exquisitely carved ivory, a treasure from the deep bush, or perhaps the very first fish of the season, a sacred offering to the Litonga, the king. Upon reaching the central courtyard, these envoys would bow low before the Litonga and his queen. Their words weren't blunt demands or transactional negotiations. Instead, they spoke in poetic riddles and elegant metaphors, a diplomatic language that valued grace and wisdom over brute force. This was a court where a well-phrased proverb could be more powerful than a sword. Let's just pause here for a moment. Can you hear it? In the quiet hum of the fire, if you listen closely, you can almost hear the echoes of that ancient diplomacy, the rustle of reed mats, the soft-spoken words that bound a kingdom together. It's a sound that tells us power can have a different voice. The true source of the Littinger's authority was onto a fearsome army, or a vast treasury filled with gold. His power lay in something far more fundamental to life on the floodplain: water rights. In this unique landscape, to command the flow of the canals was to command prosperity itself. It was the Littinger who held the ultimate authority over the intricate network of waterways that irrigated the land. He distributed the most fertile plots of land, but this distribution wasn't random. It was a carefully calculated act based on loyalty, the patterns of rainfall, and a deep, spiritual sense of ritual balance. To be granted a prime piece of land, irrigated by a reliable canal, was the highest favor. But this system also held a silent threat. Those who fell out of favor, who challenged the king's authority, or disrupted the harmony of the community, faced a quiet but devastating punishment. There would be no public denouncement, no dramatic confrontation. Instead, when the next irrigation plan was drawn up, their fields might simply be forgotten. The canal that once brought life-giving water would be diverted. Their crops would wither, their harvest would fail. It was a punishment delivered not by a soldier, but by the slow, inexorable turning of the earth from green to brown. It was a stark reminder that in Baratsland, life and loyalty were nourished by the same source. And what about the women of Louis? In many histories, their roles are overlooked. Footnotes in a story dominated by kings and warriors. But here, in the Reed Palace, women wielded an immense, though often hidden, influence. The Queen Mothers, in particular, were central figures of power. They were the whisperers of prophecy, the keepers of ancient wisdom. They were the ones who could interpret the river's moods, who could read the signs in the water's flow, the bird's flight, and the sky's colors. It was their sacred duty to advise when the Kwamboka, the Great Migration, should begin. This wasn't a simple logistical decision. It was a deeply spiritual one. Moving the entire capital was a monumental task, and to do so at the wrong time could spell disaster. The Queen Mother's blessing was essential. Without it, even a powerful Littinger would not dare give the order to move. Their voices, though spoken in quiet council rather than public decree, held the ultimate authority over the rhythm of life and the very survival of their people. Their wisdom was the spiritual compass that guided the kingdom through the seasons of flood and retreat. Let's pause once more. The night around us deepens. The sounds of the day have faded, replaced by the symphony of the floodplain. The frogs are croaking now, a chorus that sounds like distant rhythmic drums, beating in time with the ancient heart of this land. So, you see, diplomacy at Louis was more than just a negotiation between people. It was a sacred act, a continuous dialogue not only among humans but between humans and the river itself. Every decision, every alliance, every judgment was made with one eye on the court and the other on the water. The palace itself was a silent witness. Every single reed in its towering walls seemed to absorb the secrets whispered in its chambers. Every path on its floor remembered the footsteps of envoys, queens, and kings who walked them. The very structure was alive with history. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, it would vanish. When the floodwaters finally receded and the signal was given to return to the mainland, the entire palace was dismantled. The reeds were untied, the structures taken down, and the pieces carried away to be stored for the next season. Where a bustling capital once stood, there was only silence. The only evidence of its existence was the soft, damp mud, imprinted with the footprints of a people who knew how to live in harmony with the great river, their ultimate ruler. This cycle of building and dismantling, of appearing and disappearing, was the perfect metaphor for their philosophy. Nothing is permanent. except the rhythm of the water and the resilience of the people. Then came the century of change. Foreign traders arrived, their ships cutting through the familiar waters of the Zambezi floodplain, bringing with them wonders and woes. They carried metal coins that did not rust, a stark contrast to the perishable wealth the Lozi knew. They brought cloth that did not rot, woven with colors brighter than any natural dye. And they came with promises that, unlike the river cycle, did not last. The delicate balance that had existed for generations between the river and the ruler, between nature and the kingdom, began to tilt precariously. The palace, the Nalikwanda, which once floated with such grace upon the floodwaters, now faced storms from far beyond the floodplain. These were not the seasonal storms the Lozi knew and respected. These were storms of men. Missionaries with new gods, colonial officers with new laws, and tax collectors who did not bow before the sacred reeds of the king. They arrived by boat, their faces grim, meeting solemn Lozi chiefs under skies that seemed to mirror the troubled times ahead, dark and heavy with unshed rain. The very air felt different, charged with a tension that was foreign to this land. The traders' intentions, initially veiled in the allure of novel goods, soon became clear. They sought not just to trade, but to transform, to control. The coins they offered began to replace the intricate system of barter and tribute that had bound the community together. The cloth they sold started to overshadow the traditional attire that told stories of lineage and status. The promises of partnership and prosperity evaporated like morning mist, leaving behind a stark reality of subjugation. The balance was broken. Let's pause for a moment. Listen, can you hear it? Thunder murmurs across the horizon, a low, deep rumble that speaks of the upheaval to come. It's a sound that carries the weight of history, a premonition of the struggle that was about to unfold. Lialui's diplomacy, once as subtle and life-giving as a gentle rainfall, became brittle under the immense pressure of colonial ambition. The king, the Litinga, and his advisors found their centuries-old rituals, the very ceremonies that connected them to their ancestors and their gods, mocked as primitive superstitions. The queen mothers, the Indunas, who held immense power and wisdom, were sidelined. Their counsel ignored in this new patriarchal order imposed from outside. Their authority, once unquestioned, was now challenged by foreign men who saw them as mere relics of a bygone era. And the sacred canals, those intricate waterways that were the arteries of Lozi life, were neglected. These canals weren't just for transport. They were for irrigation, for fishing, for spiritual cleansing. They were the veins of the kingdom. Now they were left to choke with silt, their importance dismissed in favor of roads and rails that carved brutally through ancestral wetlands, disrupting the natural flow of water and life itself. The new infrastructure served the colonizers, not the Lozi. The roads carried away the region's resources, and the rails connected mines and plantations to distant ports, bypassing the heart of the kingdom. The river, once the center of their universe, was now just an obstacle to be bridged or a resource to be exploited. The rhythm of the floodplain was disrupted by the rigid timetables of colonial administration. The natural world, once a partner, was now an adversary to be conquered. The spiritual connection to the land was severed, replaced by property deeds and legal frameworks that the Lozi people could neither comprehend nor contest. The soul of the kingdom was being systematically eroded, one decree, one railway sleeper at a time. This was not just a political or economic shift. It was a profound spiritual crisis. The world was being remade, and the Lozi were being unmade within it. In the markets, a new kind of magic took hold. Foreign goods glittered brighter than the old ways. enamel bowls, cheap trinkets, and factory-made tools seemed to outshine the handcrafted pottery and skillfully forged implements of local artisans. The songs of the canal diggers, the chants that had echoed across the floodplains for generations, began to fade. The youth were drawn to the allure of the new, and the wisdom of the elders seemed to lose its currency. And so, slowly, inexorably, the Lozi world that had once flowed with the fluid, powerful rhythm of water hardened. It became something else, something foreign, the brittle, unyielding dryness of colonial order. The vibrant, living culture was being forced into a rigid, lifeless mold. Let's pause again. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the elder's voice as he tells this story. It trembles now, like an oar cutting uncertainly through shallow, unfamiliar water. It's a tremor of sorrow, of loss, but also of resilience. Because even in this profound loss, memory persisted. It clung on like the deep roots of a river red in the mud, and the Kwamboka ceremony, the great moving, survived. It was no longer just a practical response to the flood. It transformed. It became an act not of submission, but of quiet, powerful defiance. It was a refusal to be erased. The colonial authorities might have tried to suppress it, to control it, to turn it into a mere tourist spectacle, but they could never extinguish its true meaning. For the Lozi people, the Kwamboka became a declaration of identity, a testament to their enduring spirit. It was a way of holding on to the core of who they were, even as their world was being turned upside down. Each year, when the royal drums the Maomi sound their deep resonant call across the plains, and the magnificent Nalikwanda barge glides once more across the flooded landscape, it is so much more than just a royal parade. It's a message, whispered on the wind to the ancestors. We are still here. We have not forgotten. We still move with the water. At sunrise, as the great barge, adorned with the elephant and crowned with the fish eagle, makes its journey, you can see it. You can see the echo of history, alive and breathing, in the powerful, synchronized chants of the paddlers. Their voices rise and fall with the dip of their oars, a rhythm that connects them to every generation that has made this journey before them. It is a living, breathing testament to the fact that while a kingdom can be broken by politics and power, a people's spirit, when tied to the enduring cycles of nature, can never truly be conquered. It simply learns to flow in new, resilient ways. Start with a gentle, reflective tone, speaking slowly as our journey together draws to a close. Take a moment. Imagine you're with me, right here, sitting on the edge of the floodplain as dusk settles over the land. The last rays of sunlight are spilling across the water, turning every ripple, every droplet, into liquid gold. Can you smell it? That rich, earthy scent of wet soil mixed with the faint, comforting aroma of wood smoke drifting from a distant fire. And then, listen. Somewhere in the growing twilight, a drum begins to beat. It's not urgent, not demanding. It's a steady, patient rhythm, like the heartbeat of the valley itself. This is the pulse of the Lozi people, the rhythm of a life lived in harmony with the great Zambezi River. The Lozi knew a profound truth, one that resonates just as strongly today as it did centuries ago. They understood that to survive in a world defined by the cyclical power of floods, you must live with grace. Their entire society was built on this wisdom. They taught that true kingship, true leadership, isn't about domination or bending the world to your will. It's about alignment. It's not about defiance of nature, but a constant, respectful dialogue with it. You see it in everything they created. Their intricate network of canals, which guided the water rather than damming it. Their vibrant ceremonies, like the Kwamboka, which weren't just a spectacle, but a deeply spiritual act of moving with the river. Even their magnificent reed palaces, built to be dismantled and rebuilt, were not monuments to permanence. They were, and still are, powerful reminders that a civilization doesn't need to conquer its environment to thrive. It can flourish by listening, adapting, and moving in concert with the world around it. These aren't just relics of a forgotten past. They are living lessons in resilience and wisdom. Let's just pause here for a second. Let the image settle. The fire in our imaginary camp burns low, its embers glowing like fallen stars. Out on the water, the night birds have begun their chorus, their calls echoing over the dark, placid surface. The world feels calm, held in a moment of perfect balance between day and night, land and water. This is the peace that comes from acceptance, from understanding your place within a grand, natural cycle. It's a peace the Lozi have cultivated for generations. A quiet strength born from witnessing the river's power and choosing to respect it. They learned that the flood is not an enemy to be defeated, but a partner in the dance of life. It brings destruction, yes, but it also brings renewal, depositing fertile silt that nourishes the very ground they depend on. This dual nature of the river creator and destroyer taught them the ultimate lesson in humility and adaptation. And so, here, under the vast star-dusted canopy of the Zambezi sky, we remember the Lozi, the water people. Their story isn't a simple tale of triumph over adversity or a tragic narrative of defeat. It's something far more profound. It's a story of rhythm, the eternal, breathing rhythm of the earth itself. The rise and fall of the water is mirrored in the rise and fall of their lives, in the ebb and flow of their culture. They learned to read the river's moods, to anticipate its movements, and to align their entire existence with its powerful cadence. Their legacy isn't written in stone monuments, but in the flowing water and the enduring spirit of the people who call its banks home. It's a story of continuity, of a bond between a people and a place that is as deep and as timeless as the river itself. When the next flood season arrives, and you hear the news of a river rising somewhere in the world, perhaps you'll remember this. Perhaps you'll hear the ancient wisdom of the Lozi whispering in the murmur of the water. Move with me, and you will endure. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support allows us to continue sharing these vital stories from across our incredible world. Until next time, stay curious and listen to the wisdom the world has to offer. You are under Baobab skies.